It works, man. It works. We got lights, we got turn signals, all in the front of the bike. We're ready to go. Almost. We're ready to go. Let's see if the horn works too. Yes. Alright, so today on Hoopty Doodle, we finish up the wiring on the front of the bike on this Honda CB500F project custom thing that we're doing. And we got headlights working, we got turn signals working, everything on the front works as of today. So super stoked about that. Alright, so I've done the same thing up front here. I've gone ahead and clipped off the little bullet connectors that came with these turn signals, and I put on these specialized connectors for these sort of Sumitomo style connectors. Alright, so using knowledge gained from working on the lights on the rear of the bike, we're now going to come up here and we look. We got two. This one's different because it has 3 wires in it. There's 2 blue ones right there, and there's a green one back there. So we know the green is the universal ground on this bike. So my pin for the green wire should be right where this yellow wire is. So I need to swap this at the very least. This black one is my ground. This one goes over onto that green pin. And then this one should work if I go right to any of the other wires. It should do something. Let's turn this on. And oh yes. Alright, so I got some heat shrink. Throw these guys into the heat shrink. And it'd be nice if I had a longer tube for this, but we don't. So I'm just gonna use what we do have. There, and it's nice and neat. Alright, and then this piece slides up and right over the top of the other one to slightly overlap them, and then we'll shrink it down. There, and I'll do the same thing for the other side, but look, this is a lot cleaner looking now. Alright, so we're looking at the headlight now. So we already cut off the original connector right here. So now we just got the bare wires. And keep in mind when I'm talking about these wire colorations, that I'm talking about the wire colorations on the loom, the bike loom. These colors, these wires run up to the connection point right here on this side of the connection, and then on the other side of the connection that would have gone to the headlight, the stock headlight, the colors are different. So keep that in mind. Now, if I am looking at this, so we've got this green, it's solid green color. This one is ground color for originally in the headlight for the position light in the headlight. There's a black and brown. This is the other positive for the position lights. Those 2 are ones we will not be utilizing. I could use this ground. Basically, it's a ground. All the grounds go to ground, so it doesn't really matter. I could use this one, but they had, and this one actually ties into the other ground that's up here further back in this harness somewhere. We should also have a solid black in here somewhere. The solid black runs up to the speedometer, and this is our high beam indicator light on the speedometer. Yeah, there's a black and blue. This guy right here, this is the high beam from the switch. Black and red, which is this guy right here. But yeah, this guy right here, there's a little red stripe on that one. This is our black and red, and this is our low beam, and this one comes on automatically with the bike. It's actually labeled on the diagram, the wiring diagram is ignition. So you turn the ignition on, the low beam light comes on. That is how that is supposed to work. My plan is to wire that guy in just by itself, and then we'll have a ground using either one of these green ones here. I'm going to wire the 2 high beam associated wires together, the high beam indicator and the high beam power supply itself together. The 2 that used to go to the position light on the headlight, the stock headlight. I'm just going to tie these off. We're not going to worry about them. Let's check out my theory on this high beam indicator. Alright, so if I turn on power, turn the bike on, turn my high beam on, touch these 2 wires together. In theory, I should get the indicator light in the dash. Or maybe I don't have a complete circuit here because I don't have the negative. Hold on. Alright, so I'm getting my little touch tester thing out, and I'm going to see if we can make this work. So let's see, let's turn on, let's do the same thing, turn the bike on, turn the high beams on. Then I'm going to stick this guy in so I can get a hold of a ground, one of these ground wires, and the high beam light at the same time. Oh, I don't get any power to this guy. What am I missing here? Let's try, we should definitely have power to the low beam. That should be on with the ignition. That one lights up, you can see that hopefully. So that's power to the low beam, the ignition there. I don't seem to be getting power to the high beams here. Yeah, so interesting thing about this motorcycle here, it's a 2016 Honda CB500F, right? And the wiring is what's interesting on it for me, because this has an LED headlight stock. And I'm switching out the headlight to a different unit. The aftermarket headlight units, they all come with, well, this one's specifically marketed for Harleys. And I don't know, I don't have a Harley to compare it to in terms of what the socket looks like on a Harley or the wiring looks like on a Harley, but this is an old school 3-pin socket on this headlight for the new one I'm trying to put on it. The old one that I'm taking off of it, the stock headlight for this Honda it's like a 5-pin headlight unit. And so, but what I've just figured out, and is odd to me, is that the high beams on the headlight worked very strangely. They are kind of the opposite, where the switch on the handlebars for the high beams, the dimmer switch, you switch it to the high beams and it doesn't take energy, like the power isn't just waiting at the handlebars and then you switch it on and it goes to the high beams. No, the power is waiting at the switch from the headlight, and then you switch it and it goes to ground. From the switch it goes to ground, and that's backwards. And so trying to wire in this headlight is a bit, I have to switch things around. I have to rewire the switch so that it will go, power will go up to the switch and then wait and then go to the headlight and then go to ground, because the headlight itself has these 3 prongs on it, or has these 3 pins on it. There's a ground built in, and then it's very simple, a ground, and then there's a wire for the low beam and a wire for the high beam, and that's it. It's very simple to wire in, but because of the stock thing on this motorcycle, things are a little bit more complicated, and so I have to simplify the stock headlight down to the headlight I want to use, this aftermarket headlight. So interesting, not what I expected, and it's taking me a little bit longer to figure this out, to make sure I'm doing the right thing here and that I've explored all my options on this bike. Alright, so the switch I'm talking about is this guy right up here, where you got your low beam and your high beam, right? And you switch it up to the high beam, switch it down to the low beam. There's no headlight up here at the moment, but imagine there is. And then so you've got this headlight, and you've got multiple power things going into the headlight. I don't know what goes on up in that headlight in the stock form, because there's like a circuit board up there. And so I'm not quite sure how it works. I do know from the wiring diagram though that you've got power, multiple power things going in, and then from the high beam circuit coming out goes from there to the switch, and then from the switch it goes down to the main relay, which is over here, and then, but it doesn't actually go into the relay, it just goes to a grounded part of the circuit on the relay, which goes essentially straight to ground. And so basically the switch, it's a grounding switch. It just goes straight to ground, bam, and then the headlight comes on. The high beam comes on because it's grounded. In order for me to make this work, I need to rewire some stuff. Alright, so if we come over to the other side of the bike, this is the left-hand side of the bike. This is like where the mid-fairing would be on the stock bike, and I've taken that off. Behind there's this junction box here, this junction connector right here. Alright, so looking at this junction here, we've got the bike side, which is right here. All the wires going this way, down, they go run to the bike and around the bike. The wires going this way up, run up, and to the actual handlebars, and they go to this side of the handlebars. Basically our controls right here. So this is where our high beams are, this is where our horn is, and this is where like our turn signals are. So going back down here, we go on to the bike side, and we've got certain colors that we're looking for. For the high beams, there's a ground right here. There's this green color guy right in here, and that green one, it's basically coming from the high beams. It runs out, and that one goes to ground. Yeah, and then going into the high beam switch, there's a black and blue, and so that runs up into here. That's the same wire that comes and shows up over here. That runs from the headlight through the bike wiring harness up here, up to that switch, and from that switch it comes back down as this green color, and it goes straight to ground. And that is what gets me, is that there's no power running from the bike to the headlight. The power runs from the headlight to the bike. So I need to reverse that in order to make my new headlight work. So what I'm going to do basically is unplug this green, and then I'm going to tap into this pink and blue, which is the power wire to the horn. And I know power runs, this thing has power all the time running up through it. And I'm going to take that power and I'm going to distribute it also to the headlight, to the high beam of the headlight, and hopefully that will work. The only thing I am concerned about is the amount of juice that circuit can handle. It's on a 7.5 amp circuit, that whole thing, and it's possible I will blow a fuse. Basically, I will know if that doesn't work. What also is on that circuit, we have the tail lights, the turn signals, the horn are all on that circuit, and then I'm going to add on the high beam onto that. All right, so I'm going to sneak in here. I need to free this thing up. Well, actually, I just need to disconnect it at this point. All right, so down here, looks like I can press that, and then should be able to pull this off. There we go. All right, now I need to de-pin this sucker. All right, so I've got the green pin out. It's very interesting because this thing slides out, and then this back part here hinges up. It pops up like that, and then you have to use one of these little de-pinning tools like this and come in from the front side, squeeze down a little trigger thing right there, and then you can pull the actual pin out. This is the most overly designed thing I've ever seen. All right, so we've got our Wisamic headlight that we've chosen for this project. This guy, like I was saying, has a very simple plug system on it. And I've got, which is an old school, traditional sort of plug system. You can find these on Jeeps. This is actually a plug off an old Volkswagen. And you can still buy these in the auto parts store. But this is what we're using, and it should just plug in just like that. No, simple, no problem. So I'm going to use these same wires on here. I'm going to wire in these new wires. What I want to do next is try and figure out on this headlight what does what here. So I'm going to try and wire this up to figure out which is the high beam, which is the low beam, etc. on these pins here, and then I can go ahead and wire it into my actual bike here and put the whole headlight up and everything onto the bike and be all set. To do that, I'm going to go ahead and clip on over here to the battery and onto my headlight thing. This should be my ground. So I'll grab another one. I'll clip this one onto power there, and then we'll connect it. And let's look over on the wall here and see if we can tell which one's high beam. So there's that. Alright, so I guess that has got to be high beam. That seems brighter. That is the low beam. So low beam plus high beam. High beam, high beam, high beam. So then to wire this guy in, I'm going to do it very simply, my friends. I'm going to use these regular little butt connectors right here. Yes, I said it, butt connector. And then this brown one, this goes on this side. That is my ground. This is my low beam, this yellow, and then this is my high beam over there, according to what we just found out by playing with the headlight. So crimp this one in. Like so. Alright, and I'll go ahead and crimp this thing down too. Good crimping, man. Alright, and these go together. I'm going to twist them together. I've got my black, my all black, and my black and blue. Let's go together. Alright, so this is all wired up now. You can see I've got the black and blue wire and the all black wire crimped together going in. This is to the high beam here, and then I've got the brown here. This is my ground going into that green wire there, and then I've got, this is the low beam. This is the red and black wire wired into this yellow wire, which is the low beam. So that should all plug right in to the headlight. Then I've got these two guys here that I am not going to be utilizing, and I need to cap those off. So to do that, whoa, what I'm doing is take some heat shrink, put that right over the wire. Basically what I'm doing is making sure that the ends of these are covered up so that I do not have to worry about them accidentally shorting on something or this or that. Got my two wires, and I've got two little pieces of heat shrink just sort of slipped over them at this point, and I'll heat it up and shrink these things down. There, now we can get our headlight bucket. Alright, so here's our actual bucket. Basically just going to be stuffing a bunch of stuff in the bottom of this to clean it up so it doesn't look all weird to get these wires someplace to live. So let's try and get this headlight bucket on there. It's going to involve a little screw on the side here. First move on this, which I showed in a different video, which I'll link here and I'll link in the description of this video, is putting this little headlight into this actual ring here, which involves these little snap ringy things which are super annoying. And then in theory I just can plug this guy in, and there are a couple screws that go in the bottom here. Alright, now if I'm on the right track here with the headlight wiring, we should have at least successfully wired in the low beams on this. So if I turn the bike on, we should have low beams. Bam. Check that out. So turn signal, other turn signal. Good. Should have horn. Yep. Alright, so a little bit of a proof of concept here before we actually go ahead and commit to wiring things in, because I have these specialized connectors that it took a week of waiting to get these things shipped to me. And so before we go ahead with actually doing that, I'm going to try and jump from the power that's coming in to this loom to the actual high beam. And this is the part of the connector that goes to the wiring on the bike, right? This part over here is what goes up to the handlebar. So this is the stuff that goes to the actual dimmer switch. And so I'm basically bypassing the switch right now and doing this guy. So normally you would have basically the rest of the circuit would be a wire that runs up, and there'd be a switch at the one point in the wire, and then it would come back right down to this guy here. So I'm just bypassing that whole switch part of the circuit, and we're gonna go straight through this section here. And so I should be able to touch the power that normally goes to the turn signals and all that stuff and jump it over to the high beam and turn the high beam on. That is the theory. So I'm going to turn the bike on here, and that's the low beam. And then on here we've got power is the pink and purple one. The other one is the high beam itself is black and blue, which is this guy here. So if I touch the black and blue, and then if I go over to the pink and purple one, high beam. High beam, folks, look at that. Yes. Alright, so it should work. My theory should work. I've got everything wired up to the headlight already, and I should just be able to jump that over. Now that I've proved the concept, so to speak, I want to pull out that pink and purple wire right here. I'm going to depin that and pull it out of the connector, and then I'll have to try and take off this little connector here as neatly as I can, and then wire in a new connector that joins both that wire and a new wire that I'm going to use to jump over to another connector that goes where this guy used to be, because this used to go to ground, and now instead we're going to have power there, and that power is going to go to the switch and then to the headlight. All right, so there is the little pink pin, the pink wire, pink and purple wire. And now I'm gonna try and take this pin off of here, all right, so we got some 18 gauge wire. So that should be more than enough. I'll go ahead and strip off each end here. On our pink and purple one, I was not able to, I had to cut this thing off, so I gotta strip that as well. And then, these are my connectors. These are for 0.5 to 1.2 millimeter connectors, and I'll put a link in the description as to where I got these guys from. Basic plan here is I'm gonna wire these two together. So that means this wire and this other wire, put them both into the connector and clamp them down. But first I'm gonna twist them together. Then I'm gonna get in here with this little connector guy. Alright, and then pray that that crimp worked. Alright. Yes, we got it. Alright, so there's that part, and then, so that's our power. Woo, yes. I'm gonna strip the other end of this red wire, and then we'll put another single connector on here. Sort of like to pre-bend these things a little bit. Bend over just a little bit like that, and then helps to grip this wire for me. Alright, so that's clamped on right there, and now we need to do the top portion here. This all should work now. So on the other side of this connector, we've got pink and purple is up here. This means it should be right here. Alright. I'm just trying to jam it in there so it seats fully. Alright, so it's that one, and then that one goes over here. Alright, and then in theory, stuff can go back together. Alright, there's that one. There's that thing, and then that should be our connector. A little jumper right there, which is pretty crazy, I think. But let's test it out, see if this works. Alright, big moment coming up here. Alright, so turn the key again. We've got, do we have high beams? Yes! Yes! Oh, that's awesome, dude. Check that out. Alright, can we have high beams and turn signals at the same time? Hazard button. Alright, fuse has not blown out. Oh, that's awesome. And then, if you can see on the dash, we've got our high beam indicator as well. Check that out. Awesome, huh? Right? Awesome? Alright, I am totally excited. That means the wiring in the bike is pretty much done. We have to do one more thing. I ordered another turn signal flasher relay to fix the hyper flash on this thing because it's flashing too fast. Before we get to that, let's go ahead and cover this guy up. I'm gonna leave it wired in here because it'd be crazy to try and take it out. And I'm just gonna cover this up with some shrink wrap, shrink that down, and call it done. All right, so I got my shrink wrap assortment here. That just sort of barely gets over all the different spots. I'm just trying to cover up all the little metal shiny bits so that there's no possibility of this thing grounding out or shrink it. So that should accomplish our goal of preventing this thing from causing trouble and shorting out anything in the future. And then I can just sort of leave it in here, pull this guy back up and over everything. Jam that spare wire down in there, kinda. Big one on top is supposed to come down over the other one, kind of like that, and then we have to retape this portion up here. Good as new. And then we go ahead, get all this other stuff back where it's supposed to be in here. All right, so that one clips in there. All right, so we did some funny stuff on the wiring today on this bike to make the headlight work. I'm not recommending this. I don't know, I didn't do any math at all in terms of what this circuit should handle. All I did was test it, and I basically did an experiment to see if it would work, and it does work. That's all I can tell you. I can't tell you whether it's a good idea or not. All I can tell you is that it works so far on this bike. I have no expectation why it would fail in the future. If it works at any moment, it should work at all moments, I think. But I'm not an electrical engineer, so I cannot recommend this stuff to you. So take that for what it is, which is basically a foolish man doing foolish things on the internet. But I'm pretty pleased with how it's turned out, so I'm gonna go with it. And we'll see, I'll let you know if it turns into some sort of fire hazard at some point in the future. That will make for an interesting video, huh? Yeah. So thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next time.